You are watching or listening to Purham and Associates. For more information, go to www.rpurham.com. Hey, good day to you all. Welcome to Permanent Associates, and I'm your host, Randy Purham. And of course, y'all know it is Friday, and this is the time we take to thank our men and women who are serving our nation around the world, sacrificing and committing their time and their freedom in protecting our freedom, our Constitution, our way of life. We thank you, we salute you, and we wish you a safe journey back home to your friends, families, and loved ones, wherever that may be. And with that being said, there's a lot of turmoil in the world right now. Of course, you saw what's been going on in the Middle East over the last couple of weeks and everything. And our troops are, in that region and everything else. And I have talked to a couple of my buddies that's out that way, and things are relatively normal for given what it is. So no worries on that front there. And wish y'all safety and a safe journey back. When things quell down, y'all can move around again, of course. But hey, we got a very special guest with us today. I actually had him on a few years back, and so glad to see him back on the circuit again. And we have Gregory Wrightstone. He is the author of A Very Convenient Warming. Excuse me. How modest warming and more CO2 are benefiting humanity. He is a geologist, executive director of the CO2 Coalition, expert reviewer for the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and best-selling author of Inconvenient Facts. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing some and presenting to others, Mr. Gregory Wrightstone.
Wow, thank you for the introduction. Yeah, you almost made me sound intelligent. Thank you for that.
You are definitely intelligent. Yes.
Well, I'll just kick it off here.
Sure.
That there's so much. I'm dealing of course with climate change, and for the last several decades, we just marked the 37th birthday of global warming, which was June 23rd, and that's really when it started. And we've had decades, people like me that want to tell the truth, the facts about climate change. We've been facing fierce headwinds, and we've been silenced right and left. But it looks like there's a new sheriff in town, and things have turned so on a dime. And now that we've got the wind at our backs, and it feels like a gale force wind, so we're out there spreading the information. People are thirsty for the information that I provide, and my colleagues at the CO2 Coalition, some almost 200 experts from around the world dealing with chemistry, chemistry of geology. I'm a geologist, but providing the facts that dispute this notion of man-made catastrophic warming.
Yeah, I never could buy into that. Us little tiny people running around on this planet is creating all this havoc in the atmosphere and in the planet and the world and all that. I never could buy into that. It's just like, yeah, that's a bit of a stretch. I mean, I could see if we was like tossing nuclear bombs into, into the sky every day, maybe we would have a dent in it. But I never could buy into it.
Well, let me. So my first book was Inconvenient Facts. It was published a few years ago, and I didn't set out to write a book. What I did, I knew that some things that we're being told were just incorrect. As a geologist, like ocean acidification, it's impossible for it to happen. We can go into that later at some point. And so Inconvenient Facts really dealt with that there is no climate crisis. Look at this. This is what they're telling you. Fires are decreasing, not increasing. Sea level is rising, at about 7 inches per century, which is not too alarming. Things like that. We dealt with this and exposed that. But in my most recent book, which is a very convenient warming, what we see here is that we've gone further. We've gone further. There you go. In this book, an exploration of just the huge benefits that are accruing to humanity because of the combination of modest warming and more CO2. I call it the greatest untold story of the 21st century, that of a thriving planet. And what we're seeing is ecosystems and vegetation are thriving from the near polar regions to the equator. Every single ecological niche is benefiting from this warming and more CO2. It's if it was a Christmas, I would be telling you I have great tidings of glad joy, but it's not Christmas. But it's that message of uplifting of humanity, and it's being driven by our use of fossil fuels, which have allowed us to be what we are. The greatest time to live in all of human history is today, and it's because of fossil fuels and this increase in carbon dioxide and CO2 are leading to the greatest benefit is agricultural productivity. We're breaking records year after year after year.
Yeah, and I've been hearing and seeing about that. How our agriculture industry is booming right now, and there's also these talks of, or I guess you say concerns, if you will, about fossil fuels. And I'm glad you brought that up because the other day the Supreme Court ruled 7-2, surprisingly, that fuel producers can challenge the EPA and California's regulations. They can challenge all that good stuff. And we're seeing, on a wider scale, the biofuel industry is being ramped up as well. So there's this undercurrent of a push, as President Trump has signed the executive order to unleash American energy. So, and that equates to talking about fossil fuels. So I want to get your thoughts on how the fossil fuel industry, I'll just put it like that, how these guys are actually going to contribute to increasing I guess you could say, a better environment versus actually hurting the environment, as alarmists like to put it.
Well, the big thing they point at is our carbon dioxide emissions, carbon dioxide or CO2 emissions. Yeah. When you burn fossil fuels, the simplest form of fossil fuel is methane, which is natural gas. Methane comprises it can be 99 point whatever percent of all of the natural gas stream is methane. And when you burn one molecule of methane, and I'm not going to go too deep in the science here, but a molecule of methane is CH4, a carbon atom and 4 hydrogen. And when you burn it, it creates heat. That's what we're trying to do. We're driving your cars, whatever it is. So when you burn one molecule of methane, it combines with 2 molecules of oxygen or O2, and the result is heat, 2 molecules of water vapor, and 1 molecule of carbon dioxide. That's neither of which are pollutants. And so and what they're doing, the emissions of CO2, again, at the CO2 Coalition, we're big proponents for the huge benefits of more CO2. And these misguided efforts to remove CO2 out of the atmosphere are just, it's expensive. It'll have no effect on temperature, and it will harm the earth because lower levels of carbon dioxide, again, will be detrimental to agriculture and agricultural productivity. And if you look at these carbon capture schemes, we have a recent report that we just completed about that. Dr. Byron Sapoyan's science and research associate here, who used to be in the carbon capture business. He'd written papers. He's come over to join us because he learned the truth. And his report showed that a coal-fired plant, it costs just under $1 billion to retrofit it with carbon capture technology. But
Mm.
it's also energy intensive. So not only is it $1 billion that's required, it also requires almost 25% of the energy that's produced from that coal-fired plant. So you're going to produce 75 as much energy percent as much energy, and it's going to cost you $1 billion to do it, and you're removing a beneficial molecule. All of these things are just wrong, wrong, wrong. And unfortunately, some of these uh, Republican leaders in various states are embracing uh, carbon
Financing.
capture and storage.
Explain to us what exactly is carbon capture, because I've heard of it before, but you don't think, you just think about, like, you're in an environment and there's like this big filter and it just stops carbon from
Well, it's
escaping. But go ahead.
up, up until climate science became politicized and they started this war on CO2. There was a big CO2 industry because the benefits are the oil business loves CO2. They pump it down their oil wells, injection wells, and the CO2 is called miscible with oil. It combines within the oil and it adds energy to drive the oil through the reservoir out to the production wells.
Mm.
And so this has been used for many, many, many decades. And the other use, the primary use of CO2 is in dry ice.
Yeah.
The food business, the USDA, the food packing industry uses huge amounts of dry ice. And what is dry ice? It's frozen carbon dioxide.
Yeah.
And so just one of the interesting things about CO2, it goes directly from the frozen form into the gaseous form and doesn't, with of course, water, it goes ice, liquid, and then gas.
Yes.
But it's called sublimates. And so what they do, there are a number of different methods to use. For example, in submarines, it's not unusual. You've got an enclosed vessel, completely enclosed, with 50 men, maybe some women, that are breathing in and out. Every time you're exhaling, what you're doing is expelling 40,000 parts per million with each breath, 40,000. And the ambient air is probably a little over 400.
Mm.
And so in a submarine, it can quickly get to, it's typically submarines are on the order of 3 to 4 to 5,000 parts per million within and that's not dangerous, but it gets much above that. It can be.
Yeah.
So they have these scrubbers on submarines in a very simplistic form. It's called, I believe it's amine, that sucks the CO2 out of the atmosphere. The downside is, from what our chairman of our education department was an old nuclear submarine attack submarine commander, and he says, when you get out, you smell like cat litter or cat whatever, and it's he said no, you don't notice it when you're on the submarine. It's kind of like that frog and that's being heated up. You don't know it,
Yeah,
but once
frog in
you
the
get
pot. Yeah.
right, your wife doesn't want to give you a big hug until you've had a shower, and so that's one method. But these other methods to take a lot, it's called DAC, direct air capture. They'll also take, we just talked about, right out of the smokestack or the stacks coming from these coal-fired plants, and that's rich in CO2, and that's what a lot of this is targeting, those type of stripping CO2 out of the stacks coming from natural gas-fired plants and coal-fired electricity generation. There's a growing opposition across the country to carbon capture, and particularly the carbon dioxide pipelines that are required to move this gas across the country.
I see. Okay. Yeah, and that was kind of like the thing is, CO2 is a good thing, and you for a lot of us that probably don't remember, ladies and gentlemen, you probably remember as a kid growing up, going to that sporting goods store and getting a CO2 cartridge for your BB gun. It comes out a little silver container, or cylinder or cartridge type of thing. It was a good thing. Now you're hard pressed to find that these days. For some reason or another, I don't know if it's because, BB guns are becoming an obsolete thing, or what the deal is, or they're resorting to airsoft equipment, but that was in the 90s where I grew up in that era. It was no thing to find CO2 laying around, cartridges and the cylinders at the stores and stuff like that. People would go in and get get their little personal tanks, especially the elders, to breathe with and stuff like that. They'll fill that up, and that was like a normal thing. I don't know. Maybe it was because I was in Chicago at the time, and that was just something to do. But you don't
Well,
see
yeah,
that.
my BB, well, my BB gun. You must have come from better upbringing than I did, because my BB gun. I had a Daisy Red Ryder with a
Yeah,
the
yeah, the
pump
pump.
action.
Yeah,
Right. I didn't have that. I didn't have that CO2 cartridge. It would have been nice. And
yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of benefits to CO2, which is our big mantra here, and we've also, you may not be aware, but we've launched an education initiative. We formed an education committee. This was 3 years ago. We've done a whole series. Our first series of books have been completed. They're illustrated wonderfully by our Brazilian artist Tiago Hellinger da Silva, and we're starting our new series. And we've just published Chloe the Clownfish Sleeps Well, and you can see it's wonderfully illustrated by Tiago. And what's interesting, Tiago's in Brazil. He doesn't speak a lick of English, and I don't speak a lick of Portuguese, but the vice chair of the CO2 Coalition, Rafaela Nascimento, does. She's from Brazil, and she's our go-between. But what he's done is create just wonderful images. And the important thing we have to realize here, both our images and our videos for our learning series. It's co2learningcenter.com, co2learningcenter.com. We have lesson plans that go along with it. We've been embraced by the homeschool community. These lesson plans were created by our senior education advisor, Dr. Sharon Camp, who's got a PhD in analytic chemistry. She was an AP science teacher and reader. She knows how to write lesson plans. So we have detailed lesson plans to go along with this. They're provided free on our websites. We provide all the material free. Chloe today we just got it up on Amazon a few weeks ago. And so if you want to go get one there, it's $7. It's a wonderful story. I've had so many kids tell me their parents said, that's his new favorite book. That's Sally's new favorite book.
Yeah,
It's really entertaining, and we're using science. We're using this entertainment to teach people about science and the truth about climate change. For example, the Chloe story. Chloe, she lives on the Great Barrier Reef, and she can't sleep at night. We're calling it the Sleep Well series. She can't sleep at night because she's been told her home and her family are in great danger, which is a lie. But we're able to use this as a mechanism to get the truth out about corals in the Great Barrier Reef. And I collaborated with Dr. Peter Ridd of Australia, one of the top Great Barrier Reef experts in the world, or maybe the top. He got fired from James Cook University for telling the truth about the Great Barrier Reef. He tells the truth. Right now we've got the highest coral cover of the Great Barrier Reef that they've seen since they started these surveys. And it's just completely opposite of what is in the news media.
And that's amazing. I'm glad we got the truth tellers that actually believe in science and not the pseudoscience that's running around in the circuit right now. And this goes back to my next question to you. Tell us about the organization CO2 Coalition. I perused the website over the last few days, and I really enjoy, because I love science. So I really enjoy the information that you all are putting out there. Tell everybody what that is about, and what do y'all do at CO2 Coalition. And ladies and gentlemen that's listening and not able to watch right now, you can go to co2coalition.org, and that is the website that we're about to discuss. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, well, the CO2 Coalition is a 501c3 nonprofit formed in 2015. Our chairman, Dr. William Happer, was one of the founders. And we're nearly 200 of the top scientists and experts in the world that are providing the facts about climate change. We have physicists, some of the eminent physicists in the world. We've got Dr. John Clauser, who was the 2022 Nobel laureate in physics. We've got William Happer, emeritus physics professor from Princeton, just wonderfully gifted, intelligent people that believe as I do. And we all believe that more CO2 is better. But again, we're some 200 of the top scientists in the world, and so this is our mission is to tell the truth about climate change. And I'm so proud to lead this. What I see as I travel around the country are people just thirsty for this information that we've been silenced. They've been silencing me and my colleagues here at the CO2 Coalition, and we're getting a voice now. We're getting out there. We'd like to do. We've created a couple of 67 television commercials that I hope to start running here within the next 30 days. So if you turn on Fox News, maybe in August you'll be able to see one of our ads, and if we can get it up, heads will be exploding because they'll be yelling at the TV. They'll be yelling at they can't say that. Well, yeah, we can. It's the truth. And so we're providing that. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
No, that's good. That's good. I was going to say, talk. The thing about, in your book, Inconvenient Facts here, you touch on this, and I'm like thankful on behalf of those that are not awakened yet to the scheme here, or to the, I guess you would say, to the fraud about climate change. Al Gore peddled this nonsense from day one, since the mid-90s that I can remember, anyways, and he got a Nobel Peace Prize, I guess, or something like that, and all this money to go around and tell lies about the climate. And here we are, 30 years later, and nothing's changed with the climate per se. And people like to conflate, they conflate, the weather to the climate. 1 year, the weather might be worse than it was the previous year. We get that. But the climate is something that's totally different than the weather. And go ahead and touch on that, if you will.
Well, what they're doing, it's a fear-mongering campaign. They're using every single unusual event that maybe it's only happened a few times in your lifetime, and they go, see. But what we do is look at the longer picture. Whenever North Carolina flooded, it's climate change. It's never happened before. Well, yeah, it has. Those cities, the terrible destruction of the North Carolina floods after Hurricane Helene, it happened before. It was about 100 years before. But it happened before, and we can see that time and time again. And people they go, well, it's a terrible hailstorm. That's never happened before. Well, maybe it hasn't happened in your memory, right. But probably your grandparents saw something very similar. And so that's what we do, is take a look and put things in the long-term perspective, looking at fires, for example. In fact, this week, we worked together with Protecting the Public's Trust. The two organizations, nonprofits, sent a formal request to the Office of Science and Technology, Michael Kratsios, who's running it, along with Russ Vogt at OMB, the Office of Management Budget, to a formal review of the most recent National Climate Assessment, the fifth National Climate Assessment, which was a horrific mishmash of misinformation and disinformation. It was a complete horrifically bad fear-mongering document. And so we're demanding that it be reevaluated and completely redone using true science, not fake science or junk science.
Yeah, and that's good. I'm glad you all are leading that effort, because there is a lot of pseudoscience going on out there. And for me, when I see the mainstream, or I should say legacy media, still peddling things that we already debunked or we already know is not true, and people still eat it up and they're still running with it, they still regurgitating it, it's like, this is such malpractice on the American people that is actually on the world, because there's other people in other countries listening to us too. It's malpractice and it's malfeasance to do this. And yet they're not being shut down. Although after they've been exposed by people like you, you're exposed to say, nope, this BS, this is the real deal. They're still in existence. And it's just like, wow.
Well, it's crazy. I'll tell you the story. What's going on here is they're relying on consensus science. Yeah. You've heard of the 97% consensus. Mm-hmm. And what they say is the reason that I need to be silenced is because the science is settled. There is no debate. And if you allow this guy to talk wherever it is, he's a science denier. He's a climate change denier. That's just nonsense. I'm a scientist. We're providing the science, the facts, and data that is silence. And again, we go back to this consensus. They rely on that a lot, don't they? And it's Michael Crichton, famously the author, and he was the author, the creator of Jurassic Park and many others. A Climate of Fear was on climate change. Wonderful book. But his famous quote is, consensus is not science, and science is not consensus. And so the other quote that I like is Dr. Richard Feynman, a PhD in physics. He said, I would rather have questions that can't be answered than answers that can't be questioned. Yep. And that's what we have today. We saw it during COVID. Mm-hmm. We're seeing it in doubling down in the climate change debate. If you thought that the information you got during the COVID period about COVID was systematically stifling people that were contrary to the belief of whatever it was about the COVID, man, it's doubled, tripled, quintupled down in the climate science debate. And so they need to silence me and my colleagues. They need to silence me and my colleagues at the CO2 Coalition, because we provide a rational, compelling, fact-based story of the benefits of warming and more CO2.
And that's like I said, thank you for that, and it's awesome to hear. And I want to touch on real quick before I let you go. Touch on the latest book you have out, A Very Convenient Warming, and tell us what that is about, and what was the impetus behind you writing it.
Well, again, we went beyond there is no climate crisis until this book really explores the huge benefits that are accruing, why the human condition is improving. And one of my favorite parts in the book that I touched on my first book is the strong relationship between human history and climate history. And if we look back over the last several thousand years to the first great civilizations that arose, we find that we're in a warming trend. I call it the current warming trend. And three other great warming periods were the Minoan, the Roman, and the medieval warm period. Each one of those were associated with huge benefits to humanity. Life was good, food was bountiful. The first great civilizations during the Minoan warm period, it was the Bronze Age. The Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Hittites, the old Egyptian civilizations. If you look there, great civilizations rose up, and then it started getting cold. And it led to what was called the late Bronze Age collapse. And within maybe 100 years or less, all of those civilizations collapsed worldwide. It was a global event related to cooling, where crops failed, famine set in, and there was mass depopulation. And so we see that time and time again during the Roman warm period, the time of Christ. It was another very warm period. There's a reason the Romans wore togas. It was pretty warm. And we see that in the medieval warm period too. These other are separated by things called dark ages during the cold. And those cold periods were horrific. And so what we're being told is fear the heat, fear the heat. No, history tells us welcome the warmth, fear the cold. Cold is what kills people.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't recall a time in history to that point where the planet was, or a population was wiped out because it was too hot outside. Just never, but you did hear about it when it was cold, though. The ice.
Yeah, you're right.
And everything. You heard about that, but you didn't hear about when it was hot outside. So that's interesting. But Greg, tell people where they can follow you, support you, and get the books and join the club of truth and freedom.
If you want to go find my latest book, just search for two words: convenient warming, and it'll take you either to my website or to Amazon. Buy it. Most people like to buy it on Amazon. It's easier that way. Or go to co2coalition.org to get the facts. A wonderful website full of information.
Okay. Awesome. Yes. Thank you for taking the time to be here. Truly appreciate it. And good luck out there. Godspeed and God bless. And have fun. And And thanks again. I look forward to having you back on again soon and to give us some updates on what's going on in the world too.
Let's do that. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you. God bless. Take care. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Gregory Wrightstone. Gregory Wrightstone. There we go. Okay, talk for a second there. Check out the books. Go to the website. Let me get the website back up for you all again there. CO2coalition.org and like I said, get the books. Check it out because climate change. This is how you know climate change is like I guess you could say a hoax, a grift, a money scheme. Is because I think about Greta Thunberg, right? She was in the news recently. How she was deported from Israel. She left Sweden on a boat, all that good stuff, with some cohorts, and they tried to go into the Gaza Strip and deliver supplies or check on the people there or whatever the hell they was doing. But Israel said, "Yeah, no, go back home, little girl. We're not going to play your game here." And so that was the end of that. But her MO, her modus operandi, her lifestyle is surrounded behind climate change and doing stuff dealing with the climate. So I guess there was nothing going on in the climate, going on in the world of concern that she had to take a break from that to deal with trying to get into Israel. But hey, or go help Palestinians or whatever it was that she was doing. But hey, it is what it is. And then you had that group that was called No Oil. Yeah, I don't know if y'all remember that. That was in the media over the last couple of years. They were going to museums. This was particularly in Europe, but they were going to museums and they was wearing a vest or they'd hold up traffic and they would like vandalize, paintings and stuff like that, and saying that they were trying to stop people from using oil. But you want to stop people from using oil, but you funneled in like millions of dollars. Help me understand this now. You funnel in millions of dollars, getting all these vehicles, buses, equipment, and everything else. Everything, which by the way is made of oil or made from petroleum products. And you go and do this, especially those vests, the plastic vest that you was wearing. But okay, but hey, I'm not here to call out hypocrisy. I am, but whatever. But folks, it's Friday. I'm gonna jump up out of here. It was a great conversation, great, very, very enlightening at that. Some things that I learned that I didn't realize. In dealing with the CO2 environment, how much it does benefit mankind and how it is utilized in these specific fossil fuel industries. So there you go. And I hope you all learned something today as well. And I'll catch you all on, I don't think I will be here Monday. Monday, I got some stuff to take care of. But I will catch you all probably throughout the week. I do have a couple of shows to produce throughout the week. So we'll see